Hello everyone, and thank you for joining us. My name is Mason Allington, Marketing Coordinator at Connecting Up and TechSoup New Zealand. It is my pleasure to welcome you to this webinar about learning how to protect yourself from a digital ransom, which is a free webinar kindly sponsored by Kaspersky, so we thank you for their partnership on this one. This will be presented by Nushin Shabab, who is from the research team at Kaspersky. And just a little bit of housekeeping to start with. If you have a question during the webinar, please type it in the question box on your webinar panel, and we will answer the questions at the end of the session. If you have any technical issue during the webinar, please also type it in the question box, and I will do my best to help you with it as we go through. We'll also have Chien from Kaspersky joining us at the end of the webinar for the Q&A and the last couple of slides. And this session is being recorded, and a link to the recording and a copy of the slides will be sent to all of you hopefully by the end of this week. So that's all from me as an introduction. So yeah, please type those questions in the question box, but for now, Nushin, it's all yours.
Thank you very much. Hello everybody. Good morning, and thanks for joining our presentation. I'm Nushin Shabab, Senior Security Researcher from Kaspersky Lab, and today I'm going to talk about a very important topic, which is ransomware and the situation in Australia and New Zealand. Let me first talk about my team. I'm part of the GREAT team. GREAT stands for Global Research and Analysis Team. Leading Kaspersky's vision has always been saving the world, and in our company, 1/3 of our employees are R&D specialists. We detect more than 300,000 new malicious files every day in Kaspersky Lab, and among these people, we are about 40 security researchers and experts doing research on threat intelligence, on different cyber attacks, and different research cases in this field. We do regular training courses for Interpol and Europol and different police agencies. We provide expert speakers in different conferences around the world, and we have our own security summit every year, which gathers world's best IT securities from around the world. Okay, let's move on and talk about ransomware. These are things that I'm going to talk about today. Let's just start with a quick description about ransomware. What is ransomware? Ransomware is a type of malware that attempts to extort money from a user by locking the system and taking control of the system, or encrypting different file types on the system, and prevent user to having properly access to their system and their files. Let's have a look at the history of ransomware. What you see in this slide is a screenshot of the first ransom note ever. Ransom note is something that ransomwares often leave on an infected system after doing their infection. This means that they finished infecting the system and they just announce that they infected the system, encrypted different files, or locked the system and demand ransom to give the files or system back to the user. If you're wondering how far this goes back, that ransom note was from 1989, which was from the first ransomware, which was PC Cyber or AIDS ransomware. After that, people started looking at ransomwares even in academic ways. They even published an academic paper in 1996 about cryptovirology. And then ransomwares started using more sophisticated techniques to prevent analysts developing different decryptors for encrypted files. just by having the infected system. And this was started with GP code. That was a very important ransomware in 2006. And then after that, they started doing different techniques, using different methods to convince people to pay the ransom or to trick people to get their systems infected. And even in 2011, they started imitating Windows product activation notes. And then they started using other techniques, techniques that are more common today for spreading. They started using spreading via exploit kits in 2013. Then even macOS ransomware came in the world, and now today we have multiple variants on multiple platforms causing major damage for many victims around the world. Let's have a look at different types of ransomware. We have screen lockers that just locks the screen and prevent the user to using the system properly. We have ransomware that encrypting web servers. We have even mobile device ransomware for Android operating system. They are mostly lockers than cryptors. They mostly lock the screen, not encrypting the files. And we have the most common type of ransomware, which are cryptors or encryption ransomware that goes for different file types in your system and encrypt these files, and then demand money to give your files decrypted back to you. About the propagation methods that ransomware use, they use different methods. They use infected websites, which means that by going to these websites, clicking on links, going to different resources, different pages in these websites, you could get your system infected by ransomware. They even use advertising, which means injecting malicious code into advertisements that would appear on legitimate websites. It means that even if you don't go to the infected website, to the attacker's website, you may get infected by ransomware just by going to some legitimate websites that an advertisement appears on these websites, and you can get your systems infected. And then they use the most common way that ransomware is used today, which are infected emails with ransomware attachments, with links to ransomware or ransomware websites. That I'm going to talk about this type of propagation in a bit, in more details. They even use instant messaging applications or different social networks. So be careful anywhere when you go in web. Be careful anywhere you can get infected your system by ransomware. If you're wondering what an email with the ransomware looks like, this is a screenshot for you from one of the ransomwares which uses email as the propagation method. This email has a document attached. This malicious document has no exploits, has nothing magic in it. It just has some macros. And by opening this document, this kind of documents, you may see something like this. They put these notes to convince the user to click on enabling macros and enabling contents. And once you enable the macros, you get your system infected with ransomware. This shows another type of email attachments with ransomware. These are mostly archive files with some executable inside. Even sometimes they change the extension of the executable to SCR. SCR is another type of executable in Windows operating system, but many common users don't know about it, and then just double click on the file and get their system infected by ransomware. Now let's have a look at the situation in Australia and New Zealand. In this slide, you can see the scam email headlines from news. This was from the past months. You can see that these scam email campaigns was trying to use different organizations, from big government organizations like Federal Circuit Court to big companies, big banks, telecommunication companies, and so on, to trick the user to click the links on the emails or download attachments and get their system infected by ransomware. This is an example of these emails in Australia and New Zealand. These email scam emails impersonating Australian Federal Court. They tell users that they've been subpoenaed and they have to attend court and to testify in a certain date and time. These emails had some links in them, supposed to have more information about the case or court address and so on. By clicking on these links, people would go to the picture that you see in the right, which is a website that attackers made. They made it very well managed. They have the real logos. Even lots of the links in these websites go to the legitimate websites. But just by clicking on the submit and putting the details that ransomware attackers provide you, you could get your system infected by ransomware. These are other examples from Australia Post and New Zealand Post. These emails impersonating Post, and they tell users that they have something about a parcel that has not been delivered properly, and by clicking the links on these emails, the system would get infected by ransomware. This is a diagram that shows the infection vector of most of these scam email campaigns in Australia and New Zealand. That I've been looking carefully at these emails for the past months. They usually start with the scam emails with malicious links in them. By clicking on these links, people would go to the compromised websites, which has malicious resources injected into them. That's why they use these compromised websites, because if you want to click on links, if you check the link before clicking on the link, this doesn't get you any indication of suspicious, because these are compromised websites. And then these malicious resources into these websites will take you eventually to the attacker's websites and with malicious files and ransomware, and get the system infected with ransomware. I also gathered some statistics on ransomwares around the world, which shows the situation of Australia and New Zealand very well. In this slide, in these charts, you can see the number of unique users that has been attacked by ransomwares in Q3 of 2016, which was more than 800,000 unique users in this quarter. This was 2.6 times more than the previous quarter. And these are the top 10 cryptos and crypto ransomwares that you can see. The City Blocker is in the highest rank, and then Lucky and Cryptic 6 and the others. But the important thing is this, the map of ransomware distribution. You can see that Australia and New Zealand are among the highest rates of infection. And if you wonder why, I will tell you the reason. The reason is that we keep paying the ransom. And this is so bad, because by paying the ransom, there's no guarantee that you can have your files back. Even our researchers show that 20% of victims that pay the ransom don't get their files back. And just by paying the ransom, we support this cybercrime business model. We support the bad guys to develop more malwares and infect more systems. If you get infected by ransomware, don't pay the ransom. Let me share some tips to prevent infecting with ransomware. First of all, which is very important, always make backups. And have these backups away from your main system. If they are on a hard drive, unplug it and keep it away. If they are on a network share, make sure that it's not connected to your main system all the time, because some ransomwares go for your backups on hard drives or even on network shares and infect them. If in case you have any, they may infect them. Second one, keep all software updated, from operating system components to different applications that you have. If you remember, I talked about spreading via exploit kits. If you get infected by ransomwares that propagate via exploit kits, it means that you don't have updated softwares. If you keep your softwares updated, you won't get infected by exploit kits. The third one, which is very important, is improving user awareness. These are users that click on links in emails, download attachments, enabling macros, and get the systems infected, and may get the other systems connected to that system in a network, in an office, in a company, infected as well. So improving user awareness is very important. And then use reliable antivirus solutions. And if you want to choose an antivirus solution or a security product, just make sure that you test these products against independent tests to make sure that this antivirus solution is good and reliable. And again, if you get infected, please don't pay the ransom. Just immediately call the police. And I'll tell you why. Don't pay the ransom, because we have also good news for you. We have started a campaign called No More Ransom. In this campaign that we started, it's a joint project with Europol. Even other police agencies joined us, and some other security companies. In this campaign, our analysts carefully analyze the ransomwares, and when it's possible, they develop different decryptors for the encrypted files with ransomwares, and they provide these decryptors for free in these websites, which is nomoreransom.org. I suggest you go to this website, go to different pages. We have more tips, more tricks to use to prevent infecting with ransomwares. We have many good information in this website, as well as the free decryptors and tools to check your encrypted files against it to know what kind of ransomware infected your system. And then how we can help with our products, with our trainings. We have cybersecurity trainings in Kaspersky Lab that you can use for your company or your own awareness. We have different security products. In our products, we have a very important module which is System Watcher. System Watcher is doing very well in case of ransomwares. How it works, it keeps copy of local backups, and in case it found something suspicious like encrypting mass amount of files, it just stops the process, roll back everything, and you can have your system unencrypted again. We have even anti-cryptor for file servers that you can use. This is another very important thing in case of ransomwares. And yes, that's it. Just remember, don't pay the ransom, just immediately call the police. And Yes, thank you for your time, and if you have any questions, we'll be happy to answer.
Cool, thank you, Nushin. We've got a question so far, so as Nushin said, if you've got any questions, please type them in the question box. We've got plenty of time to answer your ransomware questions. So the first one we have from Brian, if we back up to the cloud, are we safe?
Yes, sure. If you have backups, you can restore your files from backups anytime after infection, but make sure that you have these backups regularly. Yes, any other question?
Yeah, so in terms of if I've got some encrypted files, can I rename files to regain access to them? Are there any workarounds like that, or what would you advise in that situation?
If you mean a file that has been infected and change the extension of the file, if you mean by renaming, changing the extension, it won't work because they encrypt the content of the file. If you have encrypted files, just check them with tools that we provide in nomoransom.org website to understand what kind of ransomware infected your files. And if you can find decryptors in our websites, you can decrypt your files. If not, just keep the files for some time. That may a free decryptor tool developed by our analysts.
Cool, thank you. From Peter, does creating a restore point prior to infection allow you to restore to that point?
Okay. If you check these restore points regularly, I mean, if you get your system infected and then making backups or restore points, it won't work because you find the restore point encrypted as well. But if you make sure that you are aware that when you make this restore points and backups, you can be safe.
Cool, very good. From Robert, I use Office 365 with folders syncing to the desktop. Would files encrypted be synced to Office 365 or SharePoint, Dropbox, Google Drive, etc.?
What do you mean? I mean backup,
so
backing of files on...
If your computer is infected and then it's syncing to the cloud and then another computer accesses that file, could it get infected through syncing across multiple devices?
Oh, okay. You mean if another system has access to the encrypted files, would that system get infected as well?
Yes, I think that's my interpretation of the question. Would the cloud or the other systems get infected?
Okay. No, the encrypted file doesn't have this capability to infect the other systems. If the infection process has been stopped, if the main module of the encryptors has been stopped, the other systems are not getting infected just with having the encrypted and infected files.
Okay, cool. And
Does that answer the question?
Yeah, I think so. Robert, let us know if you need any more clarification by typing another question. From Ronnie, so maybe the website you've shown, but is there a website that has training for staff that can be used to identify samples of phishing, how they can hover over the link and identify that it doesn't look right, etc.?
Sorry, I couldn't get the question correctly. You mean that the email samples?
Yeah, there are websites that offer training or examples to show to team what to look for to identify what is phishing and what isn't.
If you mean the No More Ransom website, we provide tools to define the ransomware infected files, what was the ransomware family that infected the files. I'm not sure if we have something to identify the phishing emails, but you can check the website, and I can check it and ask the people, the experts who work on this website, and then answer the question after the presentation.
Sure. Yep. Yeah, we can send links with the slides. Just I'll add on a simple level. I know for the average user, all the banking websites tend to have good examples of phishing because security is very important for them. And I've run basic internet training with people, showing them what to look for in phishing. So yeah, on the bank websites, if you go to their security sections, there's often a number of examples of what to look for there. And there's another website I know that does some free training. I'm just trying to think of it off the top of my head. I'll come back and add that one in as a resource or send it out as an email later. But there's some free sort of online that answers that question. There's a couple of videos. So on to another question. Yep, sorry, Notion. Yep.
So just something. If you have a suspicious email, if it has some attachments, if it has some links on it, for the case of links, just make sure before clicking on the links, you move your mouse over the link and check the address that the link would take you, and make sure this address is for the website that is supposed to be, and then click on the link. And for the case in case of attachments, when you see some executable attachments, don't click on that executable. You can check the file with online tools like VirusTotal, in case you don't have any security solution, security software installed on your system. And for documents, don't click on enable macros or enable contents when you see something gibberish text. Just make sure before clicking on links or opening the attachments.
Cool, thank you. We've got a point of clarification, which I think you did cover, Nishan, just about when you've got backups or hard drives are running backups from a computer, that if they're always connected, I think you did cover this, that they could be infected as well. So best advice, what would you advise, just to repeat again, in terms of how many copies of backups, or what, in an ideal situation, how many copies of backups or different systems would you back up a computer to, if you could, to prevent issues with ransomware?
Okay, if you have backups and have these backups somewhere safe and have these backups regularly, because when you get infected, when you restore files from backups, and these backups are from some few months ago, this won't help. If you keep these backups, keep backing up regularly and keep these backups in a safe place, you would be safe. It doesn't need to have many backups or copy of the backups. Just if you want to connect the hard drive which contains backups on your system, you can make some copy of this backup somewhere else.
Cool. Yeah, and I think just to make sure that if you've got one backup solution, it's not always connected all the time, because it could be at risk. So you can by putting it in a safe place, and then sort of disconnect it, and then so it's not on the network all the time. Is that what you would advise?
Yes. And
Yep.
I think we have Daniel with us. He's expert in our products. We have different products that make these processes for you do these things, backups and proper updates. I think he can answer some questions as well.
Sure. Yeah, so I'll take the opportunity to introduce Daniel from Kaspersky. Daniel, I'm assuming looks like your microphone's on. Anything to add to the discussion so far?
Hey everyone, yes I have been, so I'm here along for this one today.
Sorry, repeat, I just missed that.
Yes, I'm here. I've been joining the conversation. If there is a specific question in regard to Kaspersky Labs products or services, I'm happy to assist.
Sure, cool, thank you. So let's go. David asks, how do I find and isolate the client machine on the LAN that has been infected with ransomware? So how do I find and isolate the client machine on the LAN that has been infected with ransomware?
Okay, if I got the question properly, was the question that how can I understand the system is infected with ransomware?
Yeah, or how do I identify which machine on the network has been infected? I think is my interpretation of it.
Oh, okay. Got it. Ransomware, most of the times, after infecting the system, they drop some ransom notes on desktop, or they open the default browser and show some ransom note demanding ransom to get your to give your files to you again, and you can understand that your system is infected with ransomware. Actually, they announce after they infect the system.
Okay, I think the next question might connect quite nicely to that. From Jerry, if you have your backups on a daily cycle, will the infection generally be known within a day or so? Or can the encryption be in place for a while before the ransom request is presented? Thus, it would make the most recent backups of the last day or week worthless. So the short version might be, how quickly would you know that your system's infected?
Yeah, actually, if you use the system, if you check the system regularly, you can understand immediately after infection. It doesn't take a day or two or some time to show the ransom note. If the system is getting infected, that would actually take a few minutes. They show the ransom note immediately. But if you are planning to make backups every day, and you don't check a system for 1 week, and the system has been infected for a few days, it's obvious that your backups are infected files and encrypted files. Just make sure that you check the system regularly, and if the system is infected, don't get backups, don't rewrite your backups with the encrypted files.
Okay, cool. So I guess it's good news in terms of people that make regular backups. I think this might be a good place just to bring in, because we have a number of Kaspersky discounted products available through Connecting Up for all the eligible not-for-profit organisations. So we thank you for the webinar that you're putting on, but also the discount we provide to the sector. So it might be an opportunity, Daniel, just to cover some of the Kaspersky options that might help with the checking that Nishan's referring to. You able to jump in and just inform us a little bit about what options there might be available at discounted rates to the not-for-profit sector in Australia and New Zealand?
No worries. I'm happy to just elaborate a little bit further on how our kind of solutions help specifically kind of target ransomware and what kind of products those exist in. On the further protection of ransomware, we tackle it from two different avenues. One is on the actual endpoint side for your workstations, and the other is on the server side as well. And as we know, a lot of ransomware will try to propagate and target network drives or file servers that may exist within an organization. So we've taken a two-pronged approach with this. On the endpoint side, our endpoint security clients all contain our system watcher module, which Nishan mentioned earlier, and effectively this has two main components. One of them is automatic exploit prevention, which is basically designed to monitor application startup and runtime processes to make sure that there's no known vulnerabilities that are being exploited in common applications. The other part is a behavioral analysis component that will monitor system and application processes to make sure they're not performing malicious actions. So should a piece of ransomware, even an unknown variant, start to make changes to system files and encryption user data, the system watcher will actually detect that encryption process, determine that it is not a legitimate process, so it will put a halt to it, and roll back the changes to the system. Now, this will not restore user data, but the systems themselves will be cleaned from the infection after this has been done. Now, on the server side, we have an alternate program which we can run compared to our regular endpoint solution. Now, this is still covered under the same licensing, but it is called Kaspersky Security for Windows servers. Now, this has a specific module called Anti-Cryptor, where it monitors any file shares that exist on the server for encryption that may be occurring on them. Should an endpoint be trying to encrypt data that exists on a file share, the product will actually sever the network connection to that particular endpoint. So the result of that being that you may end up with one or two files encrypted, but that's a lot easier to restore than several terabytes of data that you may have on file shares. Hopefully that gives a good kind of idea in regard to the product capabilities there.
Cool. Yeah, thank you very much, Daniel. So, as I mentioned, both in TechSoup New Zealand and Connecting Up, we have Kaspersky solutions available at discounted rates for the charity sectors. So that's very good, and we'll send information out afterwards. Just moving on to some of the other questions. So from Andrew, some people say that you need to unplug your computer from the internet and network if you suspect you have been infected. Is this useful?
Actually, most of the times when you understand your system has been infected, that's the time that the infection process has been finished already and all your system has been infected. In case you suspect that something is going on your system and you think that maybe some of your files has not been infected and encrypted yet, one thing you can do is just turning off your computer, removing the hard drive and connect it to another system with antivirus and security solutions, and just check it. You may have some files still unencrypted, but unfortunately most of the times when you find out that your system has been attacked with ransomware, it's the time that the infection process has been finished. But no, just disconnecting from internet does not help in most of the times.
I was going to say, so my interpretation of your answer is if you detect it, it's already too late, the process has started. So if it hasn't completed, the only thing that would be disconnecting the power and basically stopping the computer from processing that that ransomware, but the actual internet connection itself, it's already too late. Would that be correct?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, cool. Okay, so
Yes.
yeah, cool. From Steve, I've heard that advanced ransomware also looks for backups and will infect the backups as well if it can. Is this true?
Sorry, could you repeat the question?
Yeah. Steve asks, I have heard that advanced ransomware will also look for the backup files and will infect the backup as well if it can. Is this correct?
Yes, that's why I mentioned to keep the backups disconnected from your system. If it's on a hard drive, unplug the hard drive. If it's on a network share, make sure that it's not connected to your system all the time. It's not very common in ransomwares, but there are some, as you said, there are some advanced ransomwares that would go for backups and encrypt the backups as well.
Cool. From Julie, do you think it is worthwhile getting cyber insurance which pays the ransom?
As I mentioned earlier, our researchers show that even 20% of victims that paid the ransom did not get their systems unencrypted or decrypted back. And by paying the ransom, you just support this cybercrime business model. And then they develop more malwares and more ransomwares. That's why we always advise not to pay the ransom.
Yeah, it's good advice. I actually can't say personally I'd known there was cyber insurance for that sort of thing. But yeah, totally agree. So I guess the best message like we're talking about is prevention rather than trying to have to get it back at the end. From Peter, if the system is locked apart from going to police, how do I get the system accessed to unlock the system? Or if the system is locked, how can I get access to the system or unlock it?
Okay, if the system is locked, if I get the answer correctly, if I get the question correctly, you asked if the system is locked, how you get the system back, or how police can help you. What was the question? Sorry.
Yeah. Apart from going to the police, how would I access the system or unlock the system?
Okay. Unfortunately, in most of the cases, in case of advanced ransomware, if the system is locked, you cannot do something to unlock the system yourself. You can ask help from experts, from security analysts, from experts that know about security products to help you get your system back. Actually, these are better type of ransomwares to deal with, the lockers, I mean. You can get the system back in most of the cases.
Yeah, so your advice, take it to a computer expert, and using the right tools, you might be able to access the system. Yeah. Okay. From David, what is the best way to educate users about ransomware? Would it be the mobile ransom site?
Security trainings.
Yeah.
So this is Chien here from Kaspersky Lab. So yes, there is the mobile ransom site where you can educate yourself. Hello. And Kaspersky also conducts cybersecurity training. So if that's something that the business is interested in educating their staff members on, we can assist with that.
Cool. So I guess if you've got questions about that, you can email to us, marketing@techsoup.net.nz or marketing@connectingup, and we can join the dots there. From Dean, regarding Robert's question, I'll come back to that one in a moment. I just need to read that again. From Scott, not a question, but just to say thanks from Scott here at Consumer New Zealand and Wellington section. Thanks, Scott. Appreciate the feedback. From Ronnie, perhaps, I think just offering some advice from an earlier question for someone. Yeah, I think it was in regards to people asking how to identify phishing or provide training to staff. He's just suggesting a Google search for how to identify phishing. And yeah, correct. There are some free sites. Yeah, there's a number of sites that might give some examples you can pass around to staff, as well as the No More Ransom site and other resources. We'll try and collect a few together and we send out the slides. From Peter, there are some small anti-ransomware programs such as Bitdefender, Malwarebytes, which people might have heard of, anti-ransomware, and Wind Patrol anti-ransomware. How effective are these small programs?
Actually, there are lots of products that can help you with ransomware.
Yeah.
I don't know a lot about the other products, other security vendors, but there are good products that can help you prevent getting infected with ransomware, or even getting your files decrypted after encryption. But as I mentioned earlier, just make sure if you want to choose a security product and test it against different independent tests, and check the result and make sure that you choose a reliable solution for your system.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, even I'll just jump in. Obviously, this webinar is sponsored by Kaspersky, and so we're encouraging people to look at the Kaspersky options. But I think just more to say for the uneducated or uninformed, there's a lot of risk in downloading free options from the internet. There might be one or two that might provide some protection or solutions in some areas, but as Nishan said, to thoroughly check the reviews and opinions, because there's a number of software, if you're not used to looking for them, that look like they make good promises about what they can do for your machine, but they actually themselves are nuisance software. So just to do a little bit of research on those. So from another question from Robert, I think it's another one related to cloud and syncing. I use the cloud as a backup, so I sync files to my desktop for ease of use. These files then sync to the cloud, Office 365, etc. So if my hard drive dies, I can just get another computer and resync the files back to a new computer. Do these cloud providers stop our files from being encrypted in the cloud? If they don't, then we would have to have another means of backup, i.e. would Dropbox stop files from being uploaded to their servers if encrypted. So it's a bit of a long question, but I think it's asking, would Office 365 or Dropbox or Google Drive stop encrypted files being uploaded? Yeah, any further thoughts around the cloud solutions or storage and backups? And the risks or threats there.
Okay, if you are asking these cloud services prevent you or the system to upload encrypted files, I'm not sure if they do something like that, if they reject receiving encrypted files, but there would be a chance that ransomwares would go for your backups if it's connected to your system, and they can access the backups from your system. If you keep your backups in a safe place, doesn't connect to your system, you would be safe.
Yeah, I think to add advice that I've always gone by with data is to have 3 copies of it if you can. So for me, on my phone or my computer, I've got a cloud backup, and then I've also with the computer got the hard drive backup as well. So I've got the local copy on the device, I've got a hard drive backup, and then also the cloud backup, because yeah, I just like having it in those multiple locations. So if you're totally relying on a cloud backup, it should be okay, but if you lose the internet or there's connection issues, I also like having that local backup. So you've got multiple options if you can. And so the cloud backup happens all the time, and maybe your hard drive you just do sporadically, just as another additional backup to the cloud service, because if you lose the password or something happens to that account, then you need some other way to access to those files as well. It's just for what it's worth, a little bit of extra. So another question. I had suspicious email purportedly from Australia Post 2 weeks ago, just like the example you gave. Australia Post confirmed it was a scam or a ransomware. What is Australia Post doing to stop their logo being used in scams? I think I could probably answer that and say I can't really do any organisation that's having their brand used in scams can't do anything, because those logos are all over the internet. And I could do up one of those emails if I wanted to, pull any logo from any website and do that. So unfortunately, yeah, I don't know, Nishan, if you've got any thoughts, but the ransomware people like to use the big trusted organisations or the organisations you're likely to receive an email from, such as PayPal or Australia Post, or ones that you might get an invoice, or you might click on a link to track a parcel, things that you're more likely to do, and yeah, that they can't do anything about their branding getting ripped off, unfortunately. Would you agree or have any other thoughts on that, Nishan?
Yes, exactly. Yes, exactly. Unfortunately, the ransomware authors are using very sophisticated techniques these days. As I had the screenshot in my slides, they use websites that look very real, with real logos, even links to the legitimate websites, and just as a user, you just have to be careful and cautious when you receive emails from everywhere. You don't. You have to check every email with links, with attachments, before clicking on links and downloading attachments.
Yeah, I think the quality of those scam emails and websites is certainly, as you're saying, there's some very high quality ones, and I've even had to look twice at some. Originally, they were really badly designed and all used Times New Roman font and looked really old. But in recent times, sometimes it's a direct copy of the website or the email, and so being educated on looking for those attachment issues or the links would certainly go a long way to preventing it happening. Okay, Sandra's just asking about, she's heard about showing file extensions, alerting people that ransomware attachments are not, for example, PDFs, etc. Just checking if we've covered off on that, or if you can just talk to that point, please, Nishan, just about how to look at displaying file extensions so you can tell if a file is the type of file you're expecting it to be.
Okay, most of the times ransomware use executables like .exe files or str files, or they use documents, very rare PDF files. But if you enable showing extensions of the files, of the known file formats on your system, you can see the extension of the file that is attached on an email or on a website. or anywhere. Just make sure that you enable this setting on your system and to show the extensions of the non-file formats.
Cool, thank you. And from Scott, we've got, if we identify a malicious email, which is rare, we typically ask staff to immediately delete the email. Should we be notifying any authority in New Zealand or Australia? Is there anything that can be done in respect to notifying authorities, or is it just delete the email and go on from there?
Sorry, could you repeat the question again? What do you mean of authorities?
Yeah, so if we like the police, so if we get a malicious email, should we notify the police or any other data security agency, or is it just a case of delete and move on?
In the case of scam emails, you can notify police, but if you have not your system infected, I think it's worthless to talk to police. Just don't open the email, because there are lots of these email samples every day, and just ignore these emails and don't click on the links or download attachments.
Cool, and I would say if you are getting a scam email from an organisation like New Zealand Post or Australia Post, just in the interest of public security, it's probably worth notifying the organisation that it's reported to come from, so they can notify their customers too. Is there a lag time? I think we've answered this already. It's a question from a while ago. Is there a lag time between infection and ransom demand? So I think you answered that already, saying it usually happens pretty quickly within a matter of minutes or a day or so. It doesn't tend to go too long. Is that correct?
Yes, exactly. In the past, there were some ransomwares that would show the ransom note meanwhile they were infecting the system. But these days, there are more sophisticated ransomwares, more advanced ransomwares, that they infect the system completely and then they show the ransom note.
Cool. And just a clarification from Julie, just what is the percentage of people who don't get their files back? I think you said it was 20 or 25%, is that right?
Yes, it was around 20%, and this is what our researchers show. All the statistics that we have are from our sensors around the world, the systems of our customers, but there are much more people infected with ransomwares that they don't have any security solution installed, or they have antiviruses or security softwares from other vendors. But what we see, these amount of people, 20% of people don't get their systems back even after paying the ransom.
Cool. And final question that looks like a little bit of a technical one from Dean. They've got a customer that's been encrypted with a particular one, trojan-ransom.win.32.cryptxxx version 3. I'll pass on the details in text later, but at this stage there's no decryption tool for this particular one. Are you aware this specific decryption is being worked on by Kaspersky? Maybe that's one we'd take offline and have a look, but in terms of what sort of things are you working on at the moment, or in Kaspersky, in terms of if there isn't one that has a decryption tool available for it at the moment, is that something that's, whether it's this particular one or others, that I'm assuming that's ongoing work, or do you know of that particular one?
Okay. Actually, developing a decryptor for encrypted files is not an easy thing, because they use very advanced techniques to encrypt the files. Whenever it's possible, I mean that the attacker system has been seized by police, they provide the secret keys to our researchers to develop the product. But if you don't find a free decryptor in our website for your encrypted files, just keep the files for a time. Maybe in a few days or a few months, you can get a free decryptor for your files, hopefully.
Cool. Okay. Well, thank you very much, Nushin and Daniel and Xian. So that has brought us to the end of the webinar. So thank you to everyone for joining us. I hope you enjoyed the presentation. I learned a lot from it. There was a lot of questions, which was fantastic. You'll all receive a link to the recording of today's session shortly, hopefully by the end of tomorrow, and from then you'll be able to access it any time for repeat viewing on our website. If you have any questions that come to mind, maybe any technical ones, feel free to send them through to me at marketing@connectingup.org or marketing@techsoup.net.nz, and I'll forward them on to Nushin and any resources. So there'll be a couple of follow-up emails in regards to this, and we'll try and incorporate some resources if relevant for the group. If you have any feedback, please feel free to send that through as well. So thank you for joining us. That's the end of today's webinar, and enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll see you next time on another webinar. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your time.